The forest was silent, too silent, hidden deep in the bushes. A woman lay pressed against the earth, her body covered in mud and torn leaves. Her breath came fast and shallow. Every sound felt like danger. Her name was Nonye. She had been running for days. Then she heard it. Footsteps. Slow. Careful. A twig snapped. Her heart pounded. She pulled herself tighter into the bushes, praying she would not be seen. A voice whispered, "I see something." Another replied, "It moved." Could be an animal. A spear was raised. Nonye knew this was the end. If she stayed silent, she would die like a beast. If she spoke, she might still die, but at least as a human. With the last of her strength, she whispered, "Please, don't strike." The forest froze. "That was no animal," one hunter said. Slowly, she lifted her head, bruised, mud-stained, trembling. "I am not a beast," she said. "I am a woman." The hunters stared. Weapons lowered. One stepped forward. "We cannot leave you here." Another said quietly, "We will take you to our king." And in that moment, fate changed direction. But before she was found trembling in the forest, before hunters mistook her for an animal, before fate carried her toward a king, we must return to the beginning. In a time when power spoke louder than truth, when leaders ruled through fear and silence was mistaken for weakness, there lived a woman whose quiet endurance would one day humble a feared warlord and change the fate of two kingdoms. Her name was Nonye. Nonye was beautiful, but not in a way that demanded attention. Hers was the kind of beauty that rested in calm eyes, gentle hands, and a heart that knew how to love deeply. She had been raised by humble parents who taught her that patience was strength and kindness was wisdom. But by the time this story began, her parents were gone. Nonye stood alone in the world, bound only by marriage. She was the wife of Nkosi, the feared warlord of Umuagu. Nkosi was a man whose name alone could silence laughter. Children stopped their games when he passed. Men bowed quickly. Elders chose their words with care. He was wealthy beyond measure, powerful beyond challenge, and ruthless beyond mercy. His soldiers obeyed him without question. Inside his compound, Nkosi ruled with cruelty. For 7 years, Nonye had been his wife. 7 seasons of rain. 7 seasons of drought. And for 7 years, her womb had remained silent. To Nkosi, this was an unforgivable failure. Though Nonye was respectful, nurturing, and endlessly patient, Nkosi saw none of it. To him, she was a disappointment he kept out of obligation, not love. Many nights, he reminded her. Sitting on his carved stool with a cup of palm wine in his hand, he would say coldly, "Do you know the favor I do you by keeping you here? No man wants a barren woman. You remain in this house because I allow it." Nonye would kneel quietly, her head bowed. "I am grateful, my lord," she would whisper, swallowing tears that had long learned the shape of her throat. She believed that gentleness could soften him, that love would heal him, that patience would one day be rewarded. But Nkosi only grew harsher. One afternoon, the women of Umuagu gathered by the river to wash clothes. Nonye arrived late, her steps slow, her eyes tired. Before she could greet anyone, the sound of hooves thundered behind her. Nkosi rode in, dust rising around him. He dismounted and stared at her with open contempt. "Look at this woman," he shouted. "The warlord's wife who cannot even rise early like other women." The women froze. "Kneel," he ordered. Right there, on the sharp river stones. Nonye knelt without a word. He pointed at the piles of laundry. "Wash everyone's clothes. Let hard work wake up your useless womb." No one laughed. No one spoke. Fear sealed every mouth. Nonye washed until her fingers bled. She never lifted her eyes. Weeks later came the festival of New Yams, a day meant for joy and thanksgiving. Drums echoed through the village square. Food filled the air with warmth. Nkosi stood before the elders and summoned Nonye. "Come here." She stepped forward quietly. "Tell them what kind of wife you are," he said mockingly. Nonye stood still, her silence heavy. Nkosi laughed loudly. She eats royal food but produces nothing. A pot with no seed. An elder shifted uneasily. Nkosi, he said softly, enough. But Nkosi waved him off, enjoying the power of his words. That night, whispers filled Umuagu. If kindness were wealth, that woman would be richer than all of us. Why must power always crush gentleness? Nonye heard the whispers, but they could not mend what had broken inside her. That night, alone on her sleeping mat, she faced a truth she had long avoided. If she stayed, she would die slowly. If she left, she might live. But no one simply walked away from Nkosi. So she planned, she watched, she waited. And on a moonless night, while the guards drank themselves into sleep, Nonye disappeared. When Nkosi discovered she was gone, his rage shook the compound. Find her, he roared. Search every forest, every river, every mountain. Bring her back to me, dead or alive. Nonye ran. She ran through thorns that tore her skin and nights so cold they bit her bones. She covered herself in mud, wrapped leaves around her body, and moved like a wounded animal. For days, she hid, surviving on roots and rainwater, listening as soldiers passed by. One evening, exhausted and barely conscious, she stumbled into a clearing. An arrow flew. Wait, a voice shouted. Before it struck, the animal spoke. I am not a beast, she said weakly. I am a woman. The hunters froze. They lowered their weapons, wrapped her in cloth, fed her, and carried her to King Obinna of the Highlands. King Obinna had been in mourning for 7 years. His beloved queen was gone, and no woman had filled the emptiness she left behind. When Nonye stood before him, thin, scarred, but dignified, he did not see her beauty first. He saw her spirit. Who hurt you? He asked gently. And Nonye told her story. That night, the king wept. In time, love grew, steady, respectful, unforced. And Nonye became queen of the Highlands. Far away, news reached Nkosi that a woman matching Nonye's description lived under the protection of a powerful king. Nkosi smiled darkly. She ran, he said, but she did not escape. He rode to the Highlands. At the palace gates, he shouted, Bring my wife out immediately. She is my property. King Obinna rose slowly from his throne. No woman here is owned, he said calmly, and no woman here will be returned to abuse. Nkosi's face hardened. Then prepare for war. He returned to Umuagu and stood before his king. My king, he lied, Nonye has betrayed us. She conspires with our enemies. They threaten our land. We must strike first. The king studied him carefully. You speak with anger, not truth, he said. There will be no war. Nkosi stormed out. But his army was no longer united. Soldiers whispered among themselves. I remember her tears. One said, I saw her kneel on stones. Another replied, This war is not for our land. A third whispered, It is for his pride. They knew Nkosi's cruelty. They knew the strength of the Highlands. And they knew this war was built on lies. When the day of battle came, Nkosi rode ahead, confident in his command. He turned, expecting his army behind him. The battlefield was empty. They had fled. For the first time in his life, power abandoned Nkosi. Surrounded and outnumbered, he dropped his sword. He surrendered. Disarmed and defeated, Nkosi was taken to the Highlands. Before the gathered elders, he was forced to kneel before King Obinna. The drums changed rhythm. Slow, royal. The palace doors opened. Nonye walked out, clothed in gold, crowned, radiant. Nkosi gasped. The woman he had called barren. Useless. Worthless. You said no man would want me, Nonye said calmly. You were wrong. Nkosi bowed, not because he was commanded, but because truth crushed him. And the elders would later say, Silence is not weakness. Kindness is not foolishness. And when love is rejected, it does not die. It finds a new home, and there it becomes destiny. Nonye's journey is far from over. Should her tale continue? Share your thoughts in the comments, and remember to subscribe so you don't miss part 2.